The Galactic Council had ruled the stars for 12,000 years. They were old. They were proud. And they believed they had solved the problem of war. In the great chamber of the council, representatives from 200 species gathered beneath a dome of living crystal. Light from 100 different suns filtered through the walls, casting rainbow shadows across the speaking floor. Here, the fate of empires was decided with words instead of weapons. This was civilization, they told themselves. This was progress. The sacred conventions were the greatest achievement of galactic society. Every spacefaring species signed them. Every fleet commander memorized them. The rules were simple but absolute. Civilian populations must never be harmed. Planets must never be bombarded from orbit. Biological weapons were forbidden. Chemical weapons were forbidden. Nuclear weapons could only be used in deep space, far from inhabited worlds. And most importantly, surrender must always be accepted. Wars still happened. Species still fought over territory, resources, and pride. But they fought with honor. Fleet met fleet in the darkness between stars. Soldiers faced soldiers on designated battlefields. When one side lost too many ships or too many soldiers, they surrendered. The winner took what they wanted. The loser paid reparations. Life continued. The Council enforced these rules with absolute authority. Any species that broke the conventions faced the combined might of every other civilization. In 12,000 years, only 3 species had been foolish enough to try. Their names were no longer spoken. Their worlds were empty. This was the galaxy that humanity entered when they discovered faster-than-light travel. The first human ambassador to the Council was a woman named Dr. Sarah Chen. She stood in the great chamber, surrounded by beings that looked like insects, reptiles, clouds of gas, and things that had no Earth comparison. She listened to their laws, she read their conventions, and she smiled. "These are good rules," she said. "We have tried similar ones ourselves." The Council was pleased. These humans seemed reasonable. Primitive, yes. Their civilization was only 10,000 years old, barely a child by galactic standards. Their technology was crude, their territory was small, but they were willing to learn. Humanity signed the sacred conventions. They were given 32 worlds on the outer rim of the galaxy, far from the important systems, far from the ancient powers. They were told to be grateful, they were told to be patient. In a few thousand years, if they proved themselves, they might earn a seat on the Council. General Marcus Cole watched the signing ceremony from his flagship, the Times UNS Endeavour **. He was 62 years old, with gray hair cut short and eyes that had seen too much. He had fought in 3 wars on Earth before joining the United Nations Space Command. He had lost friends. He had lost soldiers. He had learned what war really meant. Now he commanded the Colonial Defense Fleet. It was not a large fleet. Humanity was not a large power. But Marcus Cole was proud of his ships and his soldiers. They were good people. They worked hard. They believed in the future. His daughter, Elena, served as a medical officer on the colony world of New Valencia. She was 34 years old. With her mother's dark hair and her father's stubborn chin, she had chosen medicine instead of the military. But Marcus respected her choice. She saved lives instead of taking them. In his private moments, he admitted that her path was probably better than his. They spoke every week through the quantum communication network. She told him about her patients, about the farmers and miners and teachers who were building a new world. He told her about the politics of the Council, about the endless meetings and negotiations and compromises. "They think we're children," he said one night. "They smile at us and pat our heads and tell us to be patient." "Maybe we are children," Elena replied. "By their standards. They've been doing this for 12,000 years, Dad. We've been in space for less than 200. Age doesn't make you wise," Marcus said. "It just makes you old." Elena laughed. "Is that what you tell yourself when your knees hurt?" He smiled. It was their old joke. But beneath his smile, Marcus Cole was worried. The Velthari Dominion had noticed humanity. The Velthari were an old species, one of the founding members of the Council. They looked like Earth's dinosaurs. If dinosaurs had evolved intelligence and built starships, they stood 3 meters tall on powerful legs. Their scales were deep green, almost black. Their eyes were golden and cold. For 8,000 years, the Velthari had controlled a region of space that included some of the richest mineral deposits in the galaxy. They had grown wealthy. They had grown proud, and they did not like newcomers. When humanity's survey ships discovered 3 unclaimed systems near Velthari space, both species filed claims with the Council. The systems contained rare elements needed for advanced technology. They were valuable, and they were, technically, in neutral territory. The Council ruled in humanity's favor. The decision was fair. The evidence was clear. Humanity had discovered the systems first. Humanity had the right to colonize them. The Velthari were furious. Ambassador Kethvor, the Velthari representative, requested a private meeting with the Council's high arbiters. What he said in that meeting was never officially recorded. But 3 days later, the Council announced that a controlled demonstration would be allowed. This was an old tradition. When a species felt insulted, they could request permission to test their opponent's strength. A limited military engagement. Fleet against fleet. The winner would gain honor. The loser would gain wisdom. No one would die unnecessarily. The Council granted the Velthari's request. They sent observers from 7 species to ensure the conventions were followed. Everything would be civilized. Everything would be proper. General Marcus Cole received the news with a cold feeling in his stomach. He knew the Velthari's reputation. He knew their pride. And he knew that his daughter was on New Valencia, the closest human colony to Velthari space. He sent a message to the Colonial Defense Fleet. All ships were to increase readiness. All colonies were to review evacuation procedures. He did not expect trouble. The conventions would protect them, but Marcus Cole had not survived 3 wars by being careless. He sent a personal message to Elena as well. "Stay safe," he wrote. "I love you." She replied with a picture of herself in the hospital, surrounded by smiling children. The colony's first generation, born under an alien sun. They were the future of humanity. "Stop worrying, Dad," she wrote. "Everything is going to be fine." 3 days later, the Velthari fleet arrived at New Valencia. Marcus Cole watched from the tactical display on his flagship, 2 systems away. The Velthari had brought 12 capital ships and 40 support vessels. It was a large force for a demonstration. Larger than necessary. The Council observers took their positions. The human defense fleet, just 6 ships, formed a protective line around the colony. Captain David Park, the commanding officer, broadcast the traditional greeting. "Velthari fleet, this is the Colonial Defense Force. We acknowledge your right to demonstration under Council authority. We are prepared to engage in honorable combat. May this conflict bring wisdom to both our peoples." There was a long pause. Then the Velthari fleet commander, Admiral Texvor, responded. "Humans," he said. "You are newcomers. You do not understand your place. Today, you will learn." The Velthari ships turned away from the human fleet. They turned toward the planet, and they opened fire. The first kinetic rounds hit the capital city at dawn. Elena Cole was in the hospital when the sky turned white. She had been checking on a young boy with a broken arm when the windows exploded inward. Glass flew through the air like rain. The building shook. The lights went out. For a moment, there was only silence. Then the screaming began. Elena pulled herself off the floor. Her ears were ringing. Blood ran down her face from a cut above her eye. Around her, patients and nurses were crying, crawling, trying to understand what had happened. She was a doctor. She had a job to do. "Everyone stay calm," she shouted. "Move to the interior rooms. Away from the windows. Help anyone who cannot walk." The second impact came 30 seconds later. This one was closer. The entire building jumped. Ceiling tiles fell. Somewhere in the distance, Elena heard the roar of buildings collapsing. She grabbed her emergency kit and started moving through the hospital. There were 300 patients here. Children, elderly, pregnant women. They could not be moved quickly. Her communicator beeped. It was the planetary emergency channel. "This is Governor Harrison. We are under attack. This is not a drill. All civilians must evacuate to underground shelters immediately. All medical personnel must." The transmission cut off. It never came back. Elena reached the main lobby. Through the shattered doors, she could see the city burning. Towers of smoke rose from a dozen locations. Ships moved through the sky like dark birds, dropping fire and death. A nurse grabbed her arm. "Dr. Cole, what do we do?" Elena looked at the hospital. At the patients who could not run. At the children who did not understand why the sky was falling. "We do our jobs," she said. "We save who we can." 200 kilometers above, Captain David Park watched his world die. The human defense fleet had tried to intervene. They had followed their training. They had followed the conventions. When the Velthari opened fire on the planet, Park had ordered his ships to intercept. That was when the Council observers had stopped him. "You cannot interfere," the lead observer said. His name was Arbitrator Kren, and he was a Melaran, a species that looked like a walking tree. His voice was calm. His tone was reasonable. Convention Law 447 clearly states that interference during an active diplomatic demonstration is forbidden. "They're bombing civilians," Park shouted. "They're hitting hospitals, schools. This isn't a demonstration, it's a massacre." "The Velthari fleet commander has assured us that this action is within parameters," Kren replied. "Some collateral damage is expected during military operations. The Council will investigate any complaints after the demonstration concludes." "After? There won't be anyone left to complain." "Captain Park." Kren's voice became hard. "If you interfere with this demonstration, humanity will be in violation of the sacred conventions. The Council will be forced to respond. Is that what you want? War with the entire galaxy?" Park stared at his tactical display. The Velthari ships were spreading out now, targeting population centers across the planet. Chemical dispersal units were deploying. The readings were off the charts. Nerve agents, biological compounds, things that had been banned for 10,000 years. He looked at his 6 ships. 6 ships against 12 capital vessels and the entire Galactic Council. He gave the only order he could. "All ships, hold position." His crew stared at him in horror, but they obeyed. They were soldiers. They followed orders. David Park watched New Valencia burn, and something inside him died with it. Elena Cole worked for 17 hours. She set bones. She cleaned wounds. She held the hands of the dying. The hospital's power failed after the 3rd hour. The backup generators lasted until the 8th. After that, she worked by the light of emergency flares and burning buildings. The chemical attacks were the worst. People stumbled into the hospital with blistered skin and bleeding eyes. Children who could not stop coughing. Elderly patients whose lungs had turned to liquid. Elena did what she could. It was never enough. At hour 15, a young woman brought in a baby. The child was not breathing. His skin was blue. Elena performed CPR for 20 minutes, long after she knew it was hopeless. When she finally stopped, the mother did not cry. She just looked at Elena with empty eyes and said, "Why is this happening?" Elena had no answer. At hour 17, she heard the ships returning. Different ships this time. Heavier. The final wave. She was in the children's ward when the building collapsed. Her last transmission was recorded by the Defense Fleet's communication array. It was calm, professional. She reported the number of casualties. She reported the types of injuries. She reported that the hospital was failing. Then she said, "Tell my father I love him." The line went dead. General Marcus Cole received the transmission in his quarters aboard the Times Endeavour **. He listened to it 3 times. Then he listened to it a 4th time. He did not cry. He did not scream. He sat in his chair and stared at the wall for a very long time. When he finally moved, he walked to the bridge. His officers looked at him with fear and pity. They had heard the news. Everyone had heard the news. "Status report," Cole said. His voice was flat, empty. "New Valencia is gone, sir," his first officer replied. "Final death toll estimated at 3 million. There are no survivors." "The Velthari fleet? They have withdrawn. The Council observers have declared the demonstration concluded, and the Council's ruling." His first officer hesitated. They have found the Velthari guilty of excessive action, sir. The Dominion will pay reparations to the families of the deceased. The matter is considered closed." Silence filled the bridge. "Closed," Cole repeated. "Yes, sir. Balance has been restored." Those were the Council's exact words. General Marcus Cole looked at his crew. These men and women had served with him for years. They trusted him. They believed in him. And they had just watched 3 million of their people die, while the galaxy's highest authority called it excessive action. "Set course for the Council homeworld," Cole said. "Maximum speed." "Sir, I have been invited to address the full Council regarding this matter. I intend to accept their invitation." "What are you going to say, sir?" Cole did not answer immediately. He walked to the main display, where a tactical map showed the position of every fleet in the sector. Human ships in blue, Velthari ships in red, Council ships in gold, So many ships, so many species, 12,000 years of civilization, and not one of them had lifted a finger to save 3 million innocent people. I am going to give them an answer, Cole said finally. The answer they have been asking for since the day we joined their precious council. He turned to face his crew. They wanted to know what kind of species we are. They wanted to know if we understand our place. I am going to show them exactly what humanity is capable of. His first officer swallowed. Sir, if you threaten the council directly, the consequences could be. I am not going to threaten them, Cole interrupted. I am going to make them a promise. He looked back at the display. Somewhere in that vast darkness, his daughter's ashes were mixing with the ruins of 3 million human beings. Farmers, teachers, children, people who had trusted the conventions to protect them. They called their wars civilized, Cole said quietly. They have forgotten what real war looks like. I think it's time we reminded them. The council chamber was full. 200 species had sent their representatives. Observers filled the galleries above. News drones floated through the air, broadcasting to 1 trillion viewers across the galaxy. Everyone wanted to see the human general. Everyone wanted to hear what he would say. General Marcus Cole walked to the speaking platform alone. He wore his dress uniform, pressed and perfect. On his chest, a single ribbon caught the light. Memorial black, trimmed with silver, the symbol for a lost child. The High Arbiter, a massive being named Krenvox who looked like a living mountain, spoke the traditional words. The floor recognizes General Marcus Cole of the United Nations Space Command. You may address the council. Cole stood in silence for a moment. He looked around the chamber at the assembled representatives. The Velthari delegation sat in their usual place, their golden eyes watching him with cold amusement. Ambassador HFY wore a medal on his chest, a commendation from the Dominion for successful defense of Velthari honor. Next to them sat Arbitrator Kren, the Melloran observer who had ordered Captain Park to stand down. He showed no emotion. His bark-like face was calm and patient. Cole began to speak. 12,000 years ago, the species of this galaxy made a choice. You decided that war was too destructive, too wasteful, too dangerous. You created the sacred conventions to limit the damage, to protect the innocent, to ensure that conflicts could be resolved without extinction. He paused. It was a good idea. My species tried something similar once. We called them the Geneva Conventions, the Hague Accords, the laws of armed conflict. We wrote them in blood. After wars that killed hundreds of millions of our people, some of the representatives shifted in their seats. They had studied human history. They knew about the world wars, the nuclear age, the dark centuries before humanity finally united. We learned the same lesson you did, Cole continued. War without rules is horror. So we made rules. And for a time, we followed them. He looked directly at the Velthari delegation. But we also learned something else. Something that you seem to have forgotten. His voice hardened. Rules only work when everyone follows them. Laws only protect when they are enforced. The moment one side decides they do not apply, they become meaningless. Pretty words on paper. Comfort for the dead. HFY's eyes narrowed. But he did not speak. 3 days ago, the Velthari Dominion murdered 3 million of my people. They used orbital bombardment against hospitals. They deployed chemical weapons against children. They committed every crime your conventions forbid, while your observers watched and did nothing. Cole's voice rose. And what was your response? Reparations, a fine. The matter is considered closed. Balance has been restored. He laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. Balance. That is what you call it. 3 million dead, and you speak of balance. He reached into his pocket and removed a small object. A photograph. He held it up so the cameras could see. This is my daughter, Elena Cole. She was a doctor. She spent the last 17 hours of her life trying to save patients in a hospital that your convention supposedly protected. She died under a collapsed building, still trying to reach a child who was crying for help. He set the photograph on the speaking platform. Her death was balanced. Her patients' deaths were balanced. 3 million people who trusted your laws, who believed your promises, who thought that civilization would protect them, all balanced. Cole straightened. When he spoke again, his voice was quiet, almost gentle. I did not come here to beg for justice. I know there will be no justice. Your council has already made that clear. The Velthari are old and powerful. We are new and weak. The calculation is simple. He turned to address the entire chamber. I came here to give you an answer. The answer you have been asking for since the day my species joined your community. The chamber was absolutely silent. You have wondered what kind of species we are. You have watched us sign your treaties and follow your rules. You have smiled at us like adults smile at children. You have told us to be patient, to learn, to accept our place. He nodded slowly. We tried. We truly tried. We wanted to believe that your civilization was real, that your laws meant something, that we could trust you to treat us as equals. His voice became cold. New Valencia showed us the truth. Your civilization is a game, a toy that powerful species use when it suits them and ignore when it does not. Your laws are not justice. They are decoration, pretty ribbons on a lie. HFY finally spoke. You go too far, human. The council has made its ruling. If you continue to insult, silence. The word cut through the chamber like a blade. Cole did not raise his voice. He did not need to. I am not finished. HFY's mouth closed. Something in Cole's eyes had changed. Something old and cold and very, very dangerous. Effective immediately, the United Nations of Earth formally withdraws from the sacred conventions. We will no longer recognize their authority. We will no longer follow their restrictions. We will no longer participate in your civilized games. Murmurs filled the chamber. Representatives turned to each other in confusion. Withdrawal from the conventions was almost unheard of. It meant becoming an outlaw, a target. The High Arbiter leaned forward. General Cole, you must understand the consequences of this action. Without the protection of the conventions, humanity will be vulnerable. Cole interrupted. Alone? Targets for any species that wishes to attack us? He smiled. It was the smile of a man who had already made peace with death. Good. He turned back to the Velthari. You wanted to teach us our place. You wanted to show us that we are small and weak and unimportant. Congratulations. You succeeded. He took a step toward their delegation. You showed us that your civilization will not protect us, that your laws will not save us, that we have no friends in this galaxy. Another step. You reminded us what we really are, what we have always been, what we tried so hard to forget. He stopped directly in front of HFY. We are human. And humans do not play civilized games when our children are murdered. HFY's scales flushed darker. Are you threatening the Dominion? Human? No, Cole said. I am making you a promise. He turned to address the entire council one last time. You have called your wars civilized for 12,000 years. You have congratulated yourselves on your enlightenment. You have forgotten what real war looks like. His voice filled the chamber. My species has not forgotten. We remember the trenches, the gas, the bombs that turned cities to ash. We remember what we did to each other when we stopped caring about rules, when survival became the only law. He pointed at the Velthari. You murdered 3 million of our people. You killed my daughter, and your council told us to accept it, to move on, to remember our place. His hand dropped. Very well. We will remember our place. We will remember exactly what we are. He began walking toward the exit. You wanted to know what happens when humans stop being civilized. You are about to find out. He paused at the door. I suggest you remember this day. I suggest you remember that you had a chance to choose justice. You chose balance instead. He looked back over his shoulder. There will be no more civilized war. General Marcus Cole walked out of the council chamber. Behind him, 200 species sat in stunned silence. Then the Velthari ambassador laughed. One species against the galaxy. Let them come. We have been fighting wars for 8,000 years. What can they possibly do to us? He would have his answer soon enough. The Velthari prepared for war the way they had always prepared for war. They fortified their border systems. They assembled their fleets. They trained their soldiers. They followed the old patterns, the proven strategies that had won them victories for 8,000 years. They expected the humans to attack with ships, to charge in with anger and desperation, seeking revenge. The Velthari would meet them in space, crush their pathetic fleet, and prove once and for all that newcomers should know their place. They waited for 3 months. The human fleet never came. The first attack happened on Theskar, a Velthari agricultural moon. It was not a military target. It had no defense stations, no weapons platforms, no soldiers. It was just a farming colony. 200,000 Velthari civilians growing food for the Dominion. The human ships appeared without warning. They came out of faster-than-light travel inside the atmosphere, something that should have been impossible. Before anyone could react, they released their payload. It was not bombs. It was not missiles. It was seeds, engineered biological agents, designed specifically for Velthari crops. Within hours, the blight had spread across the entire moon. Within days, every plant was dead. The food supply for 3 Dominion systems was destroyed in a single week. The Velthari fleet arrived to find no human ships, only the dying fields and the panicking colonists. And the broadcasts. Every screen on Theskar displayed the same footage. Children from New Valencia, playing in parks that no longer existed. Families eating dinner together in homes that were now ash. Doctors working in hospitals that had been crushed under orbital strikes. The footage played on loop. There was no way to turn it off. It had been uploaded directly into the colony's communication network, spreading through every device, every implant, every display. At the end of each loop, a simple message appeared in Velthari script. 3 million. Remember, Admiral Thexvor, the fleet commander who had ordered the attack on New Valencia, demanded that the Council intervene. The humans were using biological weapons. They were targeting civilians. They were violating every rule of civilized warfare. The Council's response was simple. The humans had withdrawn from the conventions. They were no longer bound by the rules. The Velthari would have to handle this matter themselves. Thexvor ordered his fleet to hunt down the human attackers. They searched for 2 weeks. They found nothing. Human ships appeared, struck, and vanished like ghosts. The second attack targeted the Velthari communication network. A virus spread through their systems, scrambling military codes and disrupting civilian services. The virus could not be stopped. Every time the Velthari engineers thought they had contained it, it reappeared somewhere else. The virus had another function. It collected information, military positions, fleet movements, personal data on every Velthari citizen. All of it transmitted to somewhere the Velthari could not trace. General Cole reviewed the intelligence reports in his command center, hidden in an asteroid field 4 light-years from Velthari space. His staff officers worked around him, coordinating attacks that spanned dozens of systems. The Dominion is requesting emergency food supplies from the Council, his intelligence officer reported. 3 more agricultural worlds have been infected. Their reserves will last approximately 6 months. Cole nodded. Continue Phase 2. What about the psychological operations? Effective, sir. The New Valencia footage has been viewed by an estimated 40 billion Velthari citizens. Suicide rates among the civilian population have increased significantly. Several colonies are reporting mass protests against the war. And the military? Frustrated, angry. They want to fight, but they cannot find us. Admiral Thexvor has started executing officers who fail to locate our ships. Cole allowed himself a small, cold smile. Good. Fear makes people stupid. Let him keep killing his own commanders. One of his younger officers, a woman named Lieutenant Chen, spoke up. Sir, permission to speak freely? Granted. What we're doing. She hesitated. This isn't war. It's terrorism. We're targeting civilians. We're using psychological torture. We're trying to break their entire society. Cole turned to face her. His eyes were calm but utterly without warmth. Yes, sir. You are correct, Lieutenant. This is not war as the Council understands it. This is not fleet battles and surrender terms and reparations. This is what humans do when we stop pretending to be civilized. He walked to the main display, which showed a map of Velthari space. Red markers indicated successful attacks. There were many. The Velthari killed 3 million of our people because they thought we were weak, because they thought we would play by the rules, because they thought their conventions would protect them from the consequences. He turned back to Chen. I am teaching them that there are no rules. There is no protection. There is only victory or extinction. They chose to make this personal. They chose to murder innocents. Now they will learn what that means. Chen swallowed. And when will it end, sir? When the Velthari Dominion no longer exists as a functioning civilization. When every Velthari child grows up knowing what happened to New Valencia. When the galaxy understands that humanity will never again accept balance instead of justice. He paused. Or when they kill us all. Those are the only options now. The war continued. Velthari mining stations were sabotaged. Their fusion reactors overloaded, irradiating entire asteroid fields. Their water purification systems were poisoned. Their medical databases were corrupted, causing thousands of deaths from incorrect treatments. Human agents appeared on Velthari worlds, spreading rumors and lies. They told workers that their commanders had abandoned them. They told soldiers that their families were starving. They turned neighbor against neighbor, citizen against government. The Dominion's economy collapsed within 8 months. Trade routes were too dangerous. Food was too scarce. Money became worthless. Rich Velthari families tried to flee to neutral systems. Most of them disappeared before reaching safety. Admiral Thexvor assembled every ship he had for a final attack on human space. He would destroy their colonies, their shipyards, their homeworld. He would end this nightmare. His fleet never arrived. Human minds appeared in his path, hidden in the spaces between stars. They did not distinguish between military ships and civilian transports. They simply destroyed anything that approached. The admiral lost half his fleet before he even saw a human ship. When the survivors retreated, they found human raiding parties waiting behind them. Small, fast ships that struck from ambush and vanished before the Velthari could respond. More ships were lost. More crews died. Thexvor himself was killed when his flagship's life support system suddenly filled with nerve gas. The same nerve gas the Velthari had used on New Valencia. His last words, recorded by the ship's black box, were simple. How? How are they doing this? The answer was equally simple. Humans had been fighting total war for 10,000 years. They had perfected the art of cruelty. They had learned how to destroy civilizations from the inside out. And they had finally stopped pretending to be something they were not. The council watched in horror as the Velthari Dominion crumbled. Ambassador Kethvor begged for intervention. He demanded that the council enforce the conventions. He threatened and pleaded and finally wept. But the council did nothing. They were afraid. If they intervened against humanity, would those same tactics be used against them? Would their crops die? Would their networks be destroyed? Would their children be forced to watch footage of their victims forever and ever? Better to let the Velthari suffer. Better to wait and see. Better to hope that the humans would be satisfied with one broken empire. General Cole received the council's decision with a nod. They understand now, he said. They understand what we are. His first officer looked at the casualty reports. Millions of Velthari dead. Millions more starving, sick, or displaced. An entire civilization brought to its knees. Sir, he said quietly, was it worth it? Cole did not answer for a long time. My daughter asked me once why humans fought so many wars. He finally said, I told her it was because we hadn't learned to be civilized yet. I told her that someday, we would be better. He looked at the map of Velthari space. So much destruction. So much pain. I was wrong. We will never be civilized. Not when our enemies are not civilized. Not when the rules only apply to the weak. He turned away. This is what we are. This is what we have always been, and the galaxy will never forget it. The Velthari Dominion surrendered after 2 years. There was no grand ceremony, no fleet engagement, no final battle. The last Velthari government simply transmitted a message to human command, offering unconditional surrender. They asked only that the killing stop. General Cole accepted their surrender from the bridge of the Times UNS Endeavour *. He read the message once, then handed it to his first officer. Inform the council, he said. The war is over. The numbers were staggering. The Velthari had controlled 47 systems at the start of the war. Now they controlled 12. Their population had been reduced by 60%, not through battles, but through starvation, disease, and the collapse of every system that kept their civilization running. Their military was gone. Their economy was gone. Their government existed only because humanity allowed it to exist. The proud Dominion, rulers of the stars for 8,000 years, had been broken in 24 months by a species they had called newcomers. The galaxy watched in silence. General Cole was invited to address the council once more. This time, no one laughed when he entered the chamber. No one whispered about primitive humans or their place in galactic society. 200 species sat in their seats and waited to hear what the most dangerous being in the galaxy would say. Cole walked to the speaking platform. He looked older than he had 2 years ago. His hair was white now, and deep lines marked his face. But his eyes were the same, cold, patient, unforgiving. The war is over, he began. The Velthari Dominion has surrendered unconditionally. Humanity will now begin the process of rebuilding their worlds and providing humanitarian assistance to their surviving population. Murmurs of surprise filled the chamber. They had expected demands, territorial annexation, maybe even execution of Velthari leaders. We did not fight this war for territory, Cole continued. We did not fight for resources or power or glory. We fought because 3 million of our people were murdered, and your council told us to accept it. We fought to show you what happens when humanity is pushed beyond its limits. He paused. You have seen what we can do. You have seen our weapons, our tactics, our complete disregard for the rules you consider sacred. Now I will tell you something more important. He looked around the chamber. We do not want to be monsters. We do not enjoy what we have done. Every death we caused, every family we destroyed, every child we left orphaned weighs on our souls. We are not proud of this war. We are ashamed of it. His voice softened. But we are not sorry for it. And we would do it again. He let that sink in. Humanity came to this galaxy hoping to find civilization. We signed your treaties. We followed your laws. We believed that the sacred conventions would protect us, just as they protected everyone else. We were wrong. Your conventions are a lie. They exist to make powerful species feel better about the wars they fight. They give you rules to follow so you can pretend you are civilized while you crush anyone weaker than you. He pointed at the empty Velthari seats. They had not sent a delegation. They had nothing left to send. The Velthari used your conventions as a weapon. They knew you would not stop them. They knew you would call their massacre a demonstration, and their victims collateral damage. They knew that your laws would protect them from consequences. His hand dropped. We taught them otherwise. And now we will teach you. He reached into his pocket and removed a small data chip. He placed it on the speaking platform. This chip contains everything we learned about the Velthari during the war. Their biological weaknesses, their psychological vulnerabilities, their infrastructure patterns, the exact methods we used to destroy them. The council representatives shifted uncomfortably. It also contains similar information about every major species in this chamber. We have spent 2 years studying you, learning your weaknesses, building contingency plans. If any of you ever treat humanity the way the Velthari did, we will be ready. Silence. This is not a threat. This is a promise. We do not want war. We want peace. We want to trade and explore and build a future with the other species of this galaxy. But we will never again trust your conventions to protect us. He straightened. Humanity will rejoin the sacred conventions today. We will follow your rules. We will respect your laws. But you will add a new clause, a simple statement that will remind everyone what happens when the rules are broken. He looked at the High Arbiter. The laws of war exist by mutual consent. They are maintained by mutual consequence. The High Arbiter, ancient and wise, bowed his massive head. It will be done. Cole nodded. Good. Then humanity will also accept a permanent seat on the council, with full veto power over any enforcement ruling. We will not allow another New Valencia. Not to us. Not to anyone. There were no objections. General Marcus Cole walked out of the council chamber for the last time. Behind him, the representatives began the long process of rewriting their laws. The sacred conventions would survive, but they would never be the same. Everyone would remember the price of breaking them. 6 months later, Cole retired from the military. He had served humanity for 40 years. He had fought in more wars than he could count. He had won the greatest victory in human history. He was tired. He returned to New Valencia. The colony was being rebuilt now, slowly and painfully. New buildings rose where old ones had fallen. New families moved into homes built on the ashes of the dead. Life continued, as it always did. Cole bought a small house on the outskirts of the capital. It was quiet there, away from the construction and the crowds. He could see the mountains in the distance, and the sky was blue and clear. He planted a garden. It was not a large garden, just a small patch of earth outside his kitchen window. He grew vegetables and flowers and a few fruit trees that would not bear for years. He worked the soil with his hands, feeling the dirt under his fingernails, watching the seeds become plants, become food. In the center of the garden, he built a memorial, a simple stone with his daughter's name carved into it. Elena Cole, beloved daughter, dedicated healer, 2,267 to 2,301. He visited the memorial every day. He would sit on a small bench beside it and talk to her. He told her about the garden, about the new colonists moving in, about the ships he saw passing overhead, carrying humans to distant stars. Sometimes he talked about the war, about the things he had done, the choices he had made, the price he had paid. "I don't know if I did the right thing," he said one evening, watching the sunset paint the sky orange and gold. "I don't know if there was a right thing to do. They killed you, and I killed them back. And now everyone calls me a hero." He was silent for a moment, but I remember their faces. The Velthari children who starved because I destroyed their food. The families who died in plagues I created. The soldiers who burned in ships I ambushed. They were people too. They had daughters too. He looked at the stone. "Would you have forgiven me? Would you have understood why I did it?" There was no answer. There never was. Cole sat with his daughter's memory until the stars came out. Then he stood, slowly, and walked back to his house. Tomorrow, there would be more work to do. More seeds to plant. More life to nurture in the shadow of death. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humanity had shown them what lay beneath the surface of their civilization. The violence, the cruelty, the absolute refusal to accept defeat. But they had also shown something else. The ability to stop. The willingness to rebuild. The choice to be something better than the monsters they had been forced to become. Civilization, Cole knew now, was not a gift. It was not something you achieved and kept forever. It was a choice you made every day. A promise to treat others with decency and respect, even when they did not deserve it. The sacred conventions were just words. Laws were just words. The only thing that made them real was the willingness of people to follow them, and the willingness of people to enforce them when they were broken. Cole looked up at the stars. Out there, somewhere, the Velthari were rebuilding their own civilization. Humanity was helping them, providing food and medicine and technology. It was not forgiveness. It was simply the right thing to do. Perhaps, in 1,000 years, no one would remember the war. Perhaps humans and Velthari would be friends, trading partners, allies against some new threat. Perhaps the galaxy would find true civilization, not the comfortable lie it had believed for so long, but something real and lasting. Or perhaps not. Perhaps the cycle would repeat. Perhaps some new species would think they could break the rules and escape the consequences. Perhaps humanity would have to teach the same lesson again. Cole hoped not. He was tired of teaching. He was tired of war. But if the lesson had to be taught again, humanity would be ready. They would always be ready. That was the promise Marcus Cole had made to his daughter, to his people, to the galaxy. Civilization was a choice, and humans would always choose to protect it, no matter the cost.